That's right. You are tuned into Breakfast in the Desert here on Desert Radio 95.3 FM. We are still busy with our political desk for the morning, but before we continue, I urge you to head over to Facebook where we are live as well. And we have a question of the day running for you. And that question is, how best can society deal with stigma around mental health issues? How best can society deal with stigma around mental health issues? So head over to Facebook. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. Or you can also head over to our WhatsApp line and watch our story. We have the question running there for you, and you can respond with a direct message or a voice note and let me know what your thoughts are on that question. The number for that is 0811 44 6083. 0811 44 6083. Now, to continue on with our political desk for the morning, I have Advocate Heather Harker in studio with me this morning, and the Ombudsman has appointed her as the children's advocate. Now, she started work on the 3rd of October of this year and will also serve as the head of human rights and legal services within the office. Her duties as children's advocate include investigating complaints about services provided to children under the laws of Namibia or the violation of children's rights under the Namibian Constitution or any other laws, as well as to monitor the implementation of the Child Care and Protection Act and any other law pertaining to children, and to raise awareness about the Child Care and Protection Act and the importance of child protection in general. Heather, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you. It's early on a Monday morning. So thank you very much for joining me in studio today just to chat a little bit and talk more about some of your responsibilities within your office. Now, just before we get into talking about the work stuff, I do want to get to know you a little bit as well. So just tell me, what is Heather's origin story? Who are you? Where did you grow up? And talk about your school, professional and personal life in that.
Oh, wow. What a way to start the week, eh? So, yes, I grew up in Windhoek. Mm-hmm. My high school was completed in Walfish Bay, the Dana Secondary School, where I was the head daughter, etc. I studied in the Free State, where I completed my LLB. When I came home back to Namibia, it was basically getting admitted, practicing as a lawyer, and now here I am. Mm-hmm.
And when you went into law, did you have an idea or a vision of what you wanted to do? Was human rights always sort of your area of interest?
Actually, yes.
Okay.
When I was about 10 or 11, Childline Lifeline had a competition. That was where I started being exposed to the rights of children, actually. I entered the competition, and a passion, grew regarding rights, just not of children, but people, humans in general. It was a long road until I discovered that the best way to do this is through the law. And that is how I ended up here.
And then talk to us a little bit about your journey. As you said, when you came home, it was I know lawyers, you guys have to go through so many steps to get to, where you're going. But after all of that and then practicing, how did you make your way to working in the Ombudsman's office? Talk to us about that.
In the office I was, it was civil litigation. So we are constantly representing and defending ministries and officials, etc. I worked a lot with human rights stakeholders, but normally we are defending our ministries, and some of the violations I've seen was really heartbreaking. Luckily, most of the ministries and officials, they are very responsible and responsive, and they do not condone, breaking human rights. So I just felt the need to be on the other side at many instances and inform, because people generally do not know where to go. How do I enforce my rights? It's wonderful to have them, but if you don't know how to enforce it, how to use it, how do you do it? Then it's basically a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So that is where the passion came from, really to be involved in a position where you advocate, you inform people where to go, what to do. So that is, long story short, the wave went there. Yes.
And then in terms of, being now children's advocate, right? I mentioned a laundry list of responsibilities, but I think on a more simple level, just talk to us about what your day-to-day looks like. What do you have to do every day to fulfill the role of being the children's advocate?
Yes, so it starts with receiving and investigating complaints regarding children's rights. You mentioned that my portfolio is basically two parts. It's human rights in general, and then there's a specific element focusing on children's rights. So we receive these complaints, we focus on them, we investigate. Many of the times it can be resolved, especially when it's a family situation. We resolve these issues, but many times it requires going up higher. Reporting to the responsible officials, private and public, as to what the outcome of our investigations was. We advise what is the appropriate steps to be taken to resolve these infringements or abandonment of human rights, children's rights. So that is the one element. The second element is just monitoring. The Child Care and Protection Act is quite lengthy. There's a lot of provisions in there that for them to function properly, one has to consistently monitor it. So we would just be monitoring the implementation there of going to the region, seeing the facilities, making sure that violations aren't taking place. So it's that. And then, of course, when the situation calls upon it, the children's advocate is at liberty to approach the High Court or the various courts to institute legal proceedings so as to enforce children's rights. That's basically it.
And then just on the Child Care and Protection Act, right? It's one of your key responsibilities to monitor its implementation, as you mentioned. So just if you can briefly just tell us what exactly the act entails, what things are you looking at as you are monitoring the situation for children in the country?
Yes, so in chapter 5, there are a few facilities created. You have foster care, you have places of care. There's a whole list of facilities created, established in terms of the Act, and also arrangements in terms of which children are cared for. So it's our duty to make sure that they meet the standard required of them. Facilities are registered, etc. Then obviously there's a part in the Act that deals with early intervention and prevention, for example, where disputes regarding the child or the family situation, we identify children that are at risk, for example, and we see how we can address these situations at an early stage before it becomes something that the child needs to recover from, basically. So it's quite an extensive act. We are busy with a media campaign where we want to translate these rights into short films to explain to the child really and the caregiver what they're entitled to, what they can do if those entitlements aren't met, for example. I could sit here days and go through with it. Yeah.
Okay, well, Heather, we're going to get into a very quick commercial break, and then we'll unpack more of your role as children's advocate on the other side of this.
Advertise your brand or your company on Desert Radio or our live streams and gain access to more than 500,000 customers on our platforms. We have the best rates on different packages to suit your brand. Contact Leonard Halfiku on 081-870-1143 or email leonard@namibian.com.na and he will gladly assist you with a smile. Remember, Desert Radio is part of the Namibian, which means you can tap into both print and electronic media. Desert Radio, the bold voice.
This is Desert Radio.
That's right. 6:31 is the time on the clock, and you are still tuned in to our political desk here on Desert Radio 95.3 FM. Now, we are in conversation with Advocate Heather Harker, who has been appointed by the Ombudsman as Children's Advocate. And Heather has just been talking to us a little bit about herself, her career, and her professional development, as well as what her role as Children's Advocate is. Now, Heather, I think when it comes to children, right, we always have these conversations about how safe children are in their societies, how democracy protects children. And I think when we think about modern day democracy, how vital is your role in the life of every child?
That is a very good question. Democracy is really based on the enjoyment of rights. I hinted towards this earlier, but you need to know what your rights are. You need to know where to go to enforce them. You need to understand within the governing society of your country what the different role players are and where you fit in. That is really what we do. It's really extremely important for the Constitution to remain a living document, and for people and children to actually enjoy those rights. So it really boils down to information, first of all. It boils down to implementing reports from our investigation. It really boils down to going the extra mile to identify our children in every corner of our country that are at risk, the vulnerable within the vulnerable, and really breathing life into the office, the Constitution, and going the extra mile to ensure that they too get to enjoy the basic rights, really. And we treat, there's the phrase that equality is not always treating everybody equal. It is relative. So I think really that every situation requires its own investigations, and really make sure that you can say that your Constitution worked for you.
And if we had to compare Namibia to, let's say, other SADC regions, just to keep it a little bit regional, how are we faring in regards to upholding the rights of children?
I really think that we are doing fairly well. The basic education on the primary level is free, for example. Within our resources, we are reaching many children to ensure that they have the basic rights to education. That is just comparably. But that does not necessarily mean that we are where we need to be. There are many children. Recently, there were reports of child labor, for example, of violence against our children by the most trusted members in society. I mean, comparably, we are doing okay, but really that does not mean that we are doing good. There's a lot that still needs to be done to ensure that we protect our children, really.
And another issue that actually came up recently in the reports that we've been seeing is that there are communities of children, of people actually, who are born without identification. And that is not only the children, but also their parents, right, that were born stateless, so they don't have identification. And by virtue now, the children also don't have identification. So just talk to us about that particular area. How does your office get involved in remedying that situation?
One of the most basic rights of every human being, let alone the child, is the right to identity, the right to a name, the right to nationality. I know the Ministry of Home Affairs are really advancing, reaching almost every region. But this is a situation that actually cannot be condoned, because it is one of the most basic rights. It's supposed to go without saying. So really, we just really need to, if these reports are brought to our office, we can definitely investigate them, bring it to the relevant authorities, assist both the adult and the child to get the necessary documents. That is a basic right, really. In our day and age, it should not really be an issue. But this is why it is so important to bring community information out there so that people know how and where to go to implement these basic human rights.
And then another issue that has also, come to the forefront is that of children that are born to imprisoned mothers and how the system works with those children or where they take their children. So in regards to that, again, your office, what role does your office play in helping or mitigating that situation?
We have regular visits to detention centers where we visit and we go on the ground to see the conditions and we investigate where it's necessary. So through our visits to these various detention centers, we investigate and see the circumstances, how are women kept, where are they kept separate, are they kept safe, because the mother, the pregnant mother, is allowed to be with her child, I think it's for the first 2 years or so, but also it should be separate and safe. So we investigate, and when we see infractions that it's not safe, we obviously take it up with the authorities, and almost most of the times we've been able to resolve these issues. So really going out there, seeing what is actually happened, because it's not easy for someone in custody to file a report, a complaint, reach our office. So we go there. We investigate, and where we see that the mother and the child, for example, is not in a conducive setting, we sort it out while we are there.
And I think, we could run through a laundry list of, issues that need to be dealt with as it relates to children and children's rights. But I think more importantly, as you take office now as the children's advocate, what are your priorities going in? What are the issues that you want to tackle first as you take this office?
Yes. First of all, it is information, getting the information out there, using every platform to reach every child with every type of disability. That is my main concern. I need to break the gap between the children's advocate and the child. Not every child really knows that this office even exists. So we are really trying to figure out how to create a nationwide platform where we engage the child and really for them to take ownership of this office. That is really my main goal. Once we've established that, the work really starts. My focus areas, children in general are very vulnerable, but within that group, they are even more vulnerable. You have your children living with chronic illnesses, with disabilities of all types, physical, mental, and really just to assist those children in their living conditions. That is, in summary, my plan. Once we get to a position where the Namibian child knows that they have an advocate, they know how to reach her within every region, with every circumstance, from the most rural to the most urban. That is really the goal. Because then once they know their office is there for them, they can come to us, really, and that is where our work really starts.
And that is quite a mammoth task that you're undertaking, especially thinking about, we do have so many rural, marginalized areas of the country that are difficult to reach, have difficulty with accessing information. So there is quite a task ahead of you, but I'm definitely happy to hear that it is a priority to reach all children, every single Namibian child. And then, Heather, just in closing, before I let you go, I think that, with wanting to create understanding around, well, first of all, visibility for your office, to let not only children but parents know that this office exists for the purposes that it does, and then also campaign to bring this information to the public generally more. What would you say as a parting message to any Namibian that is listening in regards to children's rights and the office of children's advocate within the office of the Ombudsman?
Like my predecessor used to say, our services are free, first and foremost. Secondly, our offices are open. walk in, phone us, come to us. We will assist you, definitely. For the caregiver, for the child, really, we are here. And we will do what we can to assist you.
Absolutely. Well, Heather, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I know it's been an early morning, but we very much appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege.
That was Advocate Heather Harker, who is the children's advocate that was appointed by the Ombudsman. And she started work on the 3rd of October and will serve as the head of human rights and legal services within the office as well. So Advocate Harker just unpacking her role as children's advocate as well as her goals now that she has taken on this position. With that said, time on the clock is 6:42 and we have more Political Desk coming up for you on the other side of this.
That time for us to start the rush hour off. It's Dove. Start the show off properly and say hi to each other. How are you doing?
This is it for the Nomad. I'm Jussie Charles. I'm out of here. Keep the faith.
Get into the jug with